Let's jump into my interview with Jessica Lewis. While we're going to talk about foods for the majority of this episode, especially foods you can throw into and make smoothies out of, for the first few minutes, I want to discuss something else that Jessica does with U.S. military veterans. And this is something that I think most people are not aware of. So if you are a vet or you know a vet, you want to basically hear what she has to say, because it's something, again, I don't think it's getting the attention it deserves, and I want to try to highlight it as much as I can. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Welcome to my very first interview on my podcast, and I want to welcome Jessica Lewis as the very first interviewee, or she's the interviewee. I'm the interviewer. Jessica Lewis is a certified personal trainer and nutritional counselor, and is literally the only fitness and health and wellness professional who's also a master personal trainer, a certified nutritional counselor, and an accredited Tai Chi instructor. And in addition to that, she is also a Tai Chi fit provider for the Veterans Administration Community Network, Care Network. And for 15 years, Jessica has been working one-on-one with clients in and around the Wilmington, Delaware, and Philadelphia, PA area in her private practice. And for those of you listening to me in the state of Delaware, Jessica is also a lifestyle coach at Hockessin Chiropractic Center. And it's actually one of the only functional medicine facilities in Delaware. And in addition to all that, something I did not know is that, Jessica, you are also a first-degree black belt in Tang So Do Karate. I have never known that before, so that's kind of neat. Did I get everything right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, one thing you didn't say, though, Joe, is that I was certified as a personal trainer by you.
Yes, you were. Yeah.
And I am a very grateful student of yours, a follower of yours, and I consider you an incredibly important mentor to me. And I'm really honored that I'm your first interviewee.
So what I want to do today is focus mostly on the smoothies and nutrition, the stuff that you do one-on-one with people. And you have a bunch of videos on your website, which I'm actually going to link to in the episode notes for people who want to check you out after this. But before we get into any of that, I wanted to start off by talking about something you do. It's very interesting that I don't think people are aware of. You work with veterans in terms of teaching them Tai Chi and helping their exercise. Can you tell people more about that? Because that's actually pretty unique.
It is very unique because this is a brand new federal program, actually. The program is officially called Tai Chi for Veterans, and it was a direct outgrowth of the Mission Act. So it is in its natal stages. And what's really cool about that is that I was recruited, back when it started. And there are, I don't know exactly how many folks are incorporated into this network of teachers right now, but I'm guessing it's a couple of hundred. But as of today, there's still only 3 or 4 of us that are actively teaching, because like all military operations, it's being rolled out in stages. And it just so happened that Delaware was in phase 1 of stage 1, and karma's funny. So, but I am so profoundly grateful to be part of this program, because I always wanted to work with veterans. It's been a dream of mine ever since I put together my private practice. I want to say pushing 16 years ago now, to have some sort of impact, create a ripple effect on the way we all define the words well-being and health, which often feels like scratching away at a boulder with one fingernail and you're expecting to make a dent. But here's the thing. Just since 9/11, there's over 900,000 veterans in this country. So that represents a large chunk of people. And we're not even talking about the folks pre-9/11, just post-9/11. And if I or we or this program could make a real difference in the health and well-being of that group of folks, we might also be like just sort of the front edge of a wave of change that may eventually oversweep our entire public health system. So I almost feel as if I'm witnessing my dream potentially beginning to happen. It's also true that my first husband died of a combination of PTSD and Agent Orange poisoning. He got a lot of really great care from the VA. So I always wanted to work with veterans just to pay it back, but I had no avenue in. It's a really large organization and it's hard to get in.
Yeah. I'm also a very big fan of the VA myself. My dad died about 20 years ago from lung cancer, and he was a Marine and always very impressed with the care that the Veterans Administration gave to my dad. They brought in an entire team of doctors, and it didn't cost him a dime. Right up, they provided hospice care, insure, whatever he needed. Everybody was very nice, and I had total access to the doctors. So again, I can't speak more highly about the VA. So I'm very glad that you're doing this with the VA, and for vets, it definitely needed. Is your service, is this thing free for veterans?
It is free for veterans. It's totally free for veterans. And here's the thing. There, in the last 10 years, and by the way, Joe, I knew that your dad had passed away, but I didn't know of what. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I get why you think this is a big deal. So just in the last 10 years alone, there's been the equivalent of like one research program a day being performed on the viability of Tai Chi as a drug-free treatment option for almost any nasty condition you can think of. That being said, for an organization as large as the VA, because they're the largest government entity and always have been, to say, yeah, we actually think this is going to be a really good thing, it must absolutely be true. Yeah. So it's an amazing, wonderful gift that, they're now backing this up. And let me also be clear, though, this is part of the community care network. So It's really different from people going to the hospital. It's out in the community. And it enables a larger chunk of people to take advantage of their VA benefits now than formerly were able to, because a lot of people can't get to the hospital. Community, and they just get a referral number from their primary care physician through the VA, and then they show up in my class and I get paid by the VA. It's great.
I think it's really great. I'm surprised that this is not on the news. I haven't seen it mentioned on the news. So hopefully this is going to generate some publicity for you, and definitely for a really, really worthy cause. Because again, I can't speak more highly about the VA. And I recently have a family member who is a World War II and Korea vet, and he recently passed away from cancer. But took him down to the VA in Virginia, the VA in VA. Amazing facility, very, very nice bunch of people down there. So again, I think it's great, and I'm going to continue to do what I can do to help you promote this. Where can people hear more about this, by the way, before we go on to the smoothie stuff?
There's a great spot on my website where I've described not just the program in Delaware, but also the program nationally. And I think that'll probably be the best way to start, because from this interview, people are getting a sense of me. And if they want to know more about the national program, they can hyperlink from my page into the right spot. So I'll send you the link and you can add it in here.
All right. And I will link to all that in the episode notes for this episode, for people who want to check you out more about that. And I think it's really great. Let's switch gears now. And for the remainder of our time this week, I want to talk about smoothies, because I know that's something that you are very passionate about. I've seen you've got a bunch of videos on your website where you actually show people how to make smoothies. And this is actually a pretty popular topic these days. So I want to talk about that for the most part. Now, one of the previous interviews that you had granted, you had said something interesting that I'd never really thought of before until you said it. You said the body is more of an ecosystem than a machine. And I really like that analogy, because we've heard this concept, the body is a machine, so much that it's kind of inculcated into our minds. But when you called it an ecosystem, the light bulb went off over my head today. I'm like, she's absolutely right. It is an ecosystem. So in keeping with that analogy, which is really an analogy I'm going to appropriate, steal myself from now on. What are some basic foods that you think people should be using on a daily or weekly basis to feed that ecosystem better?
Well, it should always be whole foods, no matter what dietary trend you happen to espouse or follow. We should just eat whole foods. If I were to boil all of my nutritional counseling down into like a thesis statement or two, it would be these two things. Eat only things that are as close to their original packaging as possible. So try to eliminate stuff that comes in boxes and bags to the best of your ability, and eat more veggies. That would be it. And that being said, even with all the research out there about the importance of vegetables, I really do think that most people don't even come close to eating enough vegetables every single day. And There are no diets out there that are healthy for the human body unless they incorporate a ton of vegetables and maybe some fruits too.
I agree. It's funny. I really wanted to do this interview after Christmas time. Again, true story. You know this story because I actually texted this to you. At Christmas time, I'm down in Virginia, and my niece makes a smoothie. And in the smoothie, she throws in a half a lemon, the whole lemon with the skin. And I was like, the light bulb went off from my head. And I'm like, I've been making smoothies for years. I've never put the skin of a lemon or any other food in there. I peel everything. And I texted you and I'm like, did you know about this? And you're like, well, of course I knew about this.
I'm like, why didn't you know about this?
It never even occurred to me. And I said, well, let me bring you on as my first guest and we'll talk more about this. So in addition to lemons that you can actually put the skin in the blender, what other fruits and veggies am I missing out on that I don't necessarily have to peel to put in the blender and make a smoothie with?
That's a really good question. I think it all comes down to how powerful your blender is. I'm a huge advocate of the good old Vitamix because I think it's the best bang for the buck out there. I mean, I've had one for well over 10 years and I've never had a hiccup with it. And I got it on their refurb tab of their website. So I got it really inexpensively. I believe that it can even grind up a brick. It has the heart of a lawnmower in there. So it all comes down to how powerful your blender is. But I think if you could try to include most of whatever it is you're putting in there every single time you put something together, you're probably going to be better off. I mean, a lot of people don't realize you can eat a kiwi whole. Feels a little prickly, but if that bothers you, you can slice it sort of like a cucumber and then just eat a little bit of the skin with the yummy fruit. You can definitely eat the whole core of a pineapple, and most people toss that away, but there's way more bromelain in the core than any other part of any other fruit or vegetable, actually. So that's important. You could probably eat the rind. Just play around with putting as much of whatever you're putting into the smoothie in and just see what happens.
It's actually a really good point. You mentioned kiwi. I did a review on my Supplement Clarity website a while back on a skin supplement that includes kiwi. And again, I'm glad you pointed that out because it didn't even occur to me you could throw the whole kiwi in there. And, it was actually another question I was going to ask you, but you already let the cat out of the bag. You're a big fan of the Vitamix, as am I. You've had yours for over 10 years. I've had my Vitamix since about 2001 or 2002. It has never broke, and it gets used almost every single day. And I know it's a little pricey. You bought yours refurbished, so you probably got a really good deal. I think I got mine refurbished as well, and I've had mine for over 20 years basically, and it has never broke. I put a lot of crazy stuff in my blender, my Vitamix blender. So yeah, we're both on target with that. It's I think it's going to give you the most bang for your nutrition buck whatsoever. And you can even make soup in it. I've heard. I've never tried to make soup, but the blades move so fast it'll heat things up.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. And I've done when I just like everybody else, I'm very pushed for time, and I have thrown a cooked butternut squash in there and a little bit of coconut milk, and in like less than 3 minutes, it's boiling hot just from centrifugal force. It's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I'm agreeing with you that a lot of people don't eat enough veggies. One of the things, again, people look at me funny when I say I've even thrown lima beans in my my smoothies, but people usually look at me like I'm crazy, but they don't like the taste of veggies. So if they're going to make a smoothie and they're like, okay, Jessica, I'm going to make a smoothie, I'm going to throw some veggies in there, but I don't like the taste. Are there some other foods they could add to their smoothies that might mask the taste of the veggies so it tastes better?
I want to go back to the initial statement that people often make that they don't like the taste of veggies. Typically, that statement comes from people that, number one, don't eat veggies, because the more veggies you eat, the more you like them. And the second thing is there are a number of foods that are culturally not just accepted, but sort of pushed upon us that are downright addictive. And the more you eat them, the less you want veggies. I don't want to cast aspersions here because we're talking about vegetables. So it's possibly true that someone who feels as if they don't like veggies, they just need to spend 1 month focusing on eating more veggies because, as you know, huge aspects of the body turn over every 30 days. And it really only takes about 30 days to make or break any habit, no matter how horrible. I mean, that's why rehabs are 30 days long. So just focus on eating more veggies for 30 days and probably folks will like it more. That being said, I'm a big advocate of mostly vegetable smoothies, just because you can get all the vitamins and minerals from the fruit kingdom in the vegetable kingdom, but not necessarily the other way around. But throwing some fruits in there to make it taste better, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So when somebody is trying to develop their smoothie taste buds, I say start with a smoothie that's more fruit than veggies and sort of wean yourself the other direction if you can. But also there's a couple of things I always say to make sure that you have in every one of your smoothies to make sure that all your little taste buds are getting pinged. So you want to have something from the sweet category in there, and you want to have something from maybe the spicy or even the bitter category in there. So your lemon with a little bit of rind would count as the bitter. Spicy would maybe be ginger. That's really actually as spicy as like salsa. And you definitely want to have a little bit of salt. So if you throw just a few grains of kosher or sea salt in there, it's going to make the natural sweetness of the whatever else is in there pop out. And it's also really important that you have some healthy fat in there. So I always say that the secret ingredient to any smoothie that makes it really smooth and also makes it really nutritionally dense is avocado. Because believe it or not, avocados have more fiber than almost any other fruit or veggie, even though they're so creamy. They have so much fiber, and they're just loaded with all the healthy fats that keep your cell membranes pliable, and they help your vascular system be soft and flexible, and they're just good for every aspect of your body. But they really make the smoothie creamy, and they also bump up the flavor because they have so much fat in them as well.
Interesting.
The healthy fat.
Yeah, healthy fats. Yeah, not the unhealthy fats. No trans fats.
Yeah.
So in keeping with that whole trend, again, the weight loss shakes, you can't go by watching TV and not see an advertisement for these things. Any thoughts on these pre-made weight loss shakes that are all the rage and all over the airwaves and internet these days? Everybody's got a shake, it seems, these days.
I know. And I'm not actually a huge fan of meal replacement shakes. In fact, actually, I don't really think that I would recommend a diet composed only of smoothies. I mean, I like to think that a really healthy meal, let's say that your plate was a circle and you drew a line down the middle of it and then a line through one of the half moons you just made. And if you fill up that quarter of your plate with whatever healthy protein that you choose to eat, and then fill up the entire remaining 3/4 of your plate with vegetables and fruits, you cannot help but have a really healthy meal, even if your veggies are stacked this high and your protein is like that. So making a smoothie into an entire meal is a little bit challenging unless you add in protein powder, and there's no such thing as a protein powder plant growing out of the ground. So I'm not a massive fan of protein powders. I guess probably the closest thing to one that I could really get behind would be like dehydrated eggs or bone broth. Or if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, maybe just throw whole hemp seeds in there. A lot of healthy proteins and fats in there, and fiber, and chia seeds maybe. But again, I don't want to cast aspersions, but I'm not a big fan of meal replacement shakes or companies that say that this shake is better for you than actual food. I don't think anything's better for you than actual food.
I agree. Yeah, they're all the rage. They're convenient. And that's why a lot of people gravitate towards them. I think they're probably also very cheap to be made. But yeah, you can't have an eating program just around any kind of smoothie or ready-made shake. And no ready-made shake can compare to, say, what you're going to get, in a plant or any kind of fruit or vegetable. So I agree 100%. But I wanted to bring that up because, again, I see them on television every day. There's a lot of money to be made in these things, and I also wonder about where sometimes the ingredients come from, what country they come from and stuff like that, how they making some of this stuff so inexpensive.
Before you go on though, I want to add something in, and I kind of cheated because I knew you kind of wanted to talk about smoothies. So I pulled up some of my little slides that I use when I'm teaching the class, and I'm not going to show you the names because I don't want to call any name. I don't want to do any name calling here.
I got you.
I'm looking at I'm covering up the names. I'm looking at the list of smoothies that are available by a very popular smoothie making company, a company that sells, powdered smoothies.
Gotcha.
And the box that's in green, that's their really healthy ones. And then I'm looking at two that you would think would be the healthiest ones of all. And one of them has ostensibly just apples, kiwi, and kale in them. And the other one has, according to the name of it, berries and carrots. Yeah. But they each have the equivalent of 2 cans of Coca-Cola in one serving. And even if it came from healthy food, that's still an awful lot of sugar. So if someone's drinking that and hoping to get healthier, unless they're having a really, really balanced diet and they're exercising well and they're relaxing well, because I really do think that health is sort of like sitting on a 3-legged stool. You got to do all 3. It's difficult to get there with that kind of a...
I agree. Yeah. You mentioned ginger a little while ago. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't really think about when they think smoothies. They think, fruits, and that's about it. What are some spices that people might want to have on hand when they're making smoothies? Because I've added a few spices to mine. They actually do add to the repertoire of what I add to my Vitamix every day. What do you think on all that?
Ginger is a definite go-to. It tastes delicious with things that most people would never think about making into a smoothie, like a raw beet. Like the fruit of the beet, the root of it is way better for you nutritionally than the greens if you eat it raw. But the greens, on the other hand, are way better for you if you cook them. But most people wouldn't dream of biting into a raw beet. I mean, it would just be weird. Or it would taste dirty is what it's
Yeah.
So ginger tastes great with raw beets. It makes actually the sweetness of the beet pop out because you're playing around with complementary flavors. It's almost like colors on the opposite end of a color wheel. Other things that really add to the flavor of things would be raw turmeric. You can get that in the grocery store. You can add that in. That tastes really good with citrus and greens together. And that adds a lot of vitamins and minerals. Gosh, what else? I have a recipe for a green smoothie that actually tastes a heck of a lot more like V8 than anything else, even though it's green. And I would throw a little jalapeno in there. Why not make it spicy?
Okay, interesting.
I know you and I are both fans of V8, but they make a spicy one. So, just add a little jalapeno. But I think, again, anything that you happen to like, why not just play around? I always think of smoothies as sort of like a playground. Just throw in what you think is going to taste good and use that as a jumping off point and then go from there.
Have you ever added pepper to your smoothies?
Oh, for sure you could. Yeah. Pepper's highly anti-inflammatory. And in fact, if you want to add a little pepper, but you don't want something that's going to be so much of a kick, you can go with white pepper.
I add pepper because turmeric doesn't really be absorbed very well by the body. And if you add a little pepper to it, it really increases the absorption a whole lot. If you're not going to add, there's 2 things that increase turmeric absorption, black pepper and fat. So if you had an avocado in there or black pepper, that's going to increase your turmeric absorption dramatically. So okay, very good.
I was afraid we would get in above my pay grade on this conversation. I'm so glad you added that in. Because folks, yes, Joe also did teach me my first nutrition cert, so I bow to my seafood here. I really
no.
Thank you for adding that in. I did not know.
No, it's okay. There's a lot I don't know. I as I sometimes say, I know like an inch wide and a mile deep on a very small sliver of things. That's why I wanted to bring other people on who have expertises on areas that I don't know about. I mean, I kind of rub 2 sticks together when I put together smoothies. I just throw stuff into Vitamix and kind of hope for the best. But yeah, definitely after we're done, definitely send me your V8 recipe. I'll actually put that in the episode notes as well. How do you feel about the seeds? You mentioned a couple seeds. Do you have a seed that you like to add or to your smoothies more than any others? I like to add pumpkin seeds to mine. So I go to the supermarket and I get pumpkin seeds. But I've also added I think I've used chia seeds and in the past, but pumpkin seeds are usually my go-to thing these days. So what do you think?
I'm glad you mentioned pumpkin seeds because I think they have more of their own flavor than some of the other seeds. Flax seeds has a very buttery flavor, so that's a great way to add a rich, fatty taste to it. Right. I think that hemp seeds and chia seeds don't have much of a taste on their own, so they tend to blend well with whatever it is you're putting together, and they'd be a good choice if you wanted to add protein, but you didn't want to change the flavor very much.
Right.
But I also agree. I love the pumpkin seeds. That's a great idea.
And for those who are wondering, if you add hemp seeds to your smoothie, you're not going to get high, correct?
No.
Just want to throw that because, hemp is all the rage days, and you think hemp, you think marijuana, you think getting stoned. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So
I do think that adding chia seeds to smoothies is a really good idea because people tend to play around with chia a lot and they forget that it expands to 10 10 times its weight after it's sat in fluid for just a little bit. Is one reason why long distance runners like to eat a little chia before so they don't get dehydrated.
Interesting.
But when you add it to the smoothie, it soaks up the fluid in the smoothie. So if you let it sit a little bit, and if it starts to get a little congealed, you can add a little more water and then grind it up again. And then you know that it won't suddenly, explode in your belly, not explode, but really expand in your belly. But it adds a ton of fiber also, so it makes you regular. Pooping is one of the greatest ways to detox your body. So, and that's another great thing about smoothies. Most people are morbidly dehydrated. Yeah. So this is a great way to not only get more vitamins and minerals in the vegetables and fruits, but you're getting the water that's in the vegetables and fruits, and you're getting the water you add in. So it's a great way to cure America's dehydration problem.
As you take a drink. And that's actually a really good point, because you mentioned the microbiome. Fiber is the food of the microbiome. In the world of supplements, fiber is usually called a prebiotic. Prebiotic is the sexy new age term for fiber. So, you add more fiber to your diet, your microbiome gets healthy. And there's actually research that shows that within less than a month of adding more fiber to your diet, your microbiome actually gets healthier. So it's another added benefit.
Well, as you brought that up, because there's, the greatest thing about podcasts and things like this is that sometimes the questions launch us into other areas, is that for a lot of research seems to lead to the fact that everybody would be healthier if they just ate in excess of 25 grams of fiber every day. And that is so easy to do when you're eating 9 to 13 servings of vegetables every day. And very few people eat 9 to 13 servings. But if you're eating a smoothie, it's a no-brainer.
You start your day off right. If I remember right, Americans, as a rule, get about 12 grams of fiber a day if they're lucky. Most people start off with a bagel and coffee and, hardly any fiber at all in that. So you're right. They get at least the RDA of fiber, which is about 25 to 30 grams a day. They're doing okay. Hopefully some people are listening to us and taking that to heart. But most Americans don't get anywhere close to the RDA, which, again, putting things in perspective, that's about 1 ounce of fiber a day. 1 ounce of fiber a day, and most Americans don't even get that.
But if you compare like an ounce of Metamucil, which I think is the average serving, to what you're getting when you eat you can't see this, or I guess you can. This is all the phytonutrients and big and small vitamins that they have tracked so far in an apple. They haven't finished mapping it out.
Wow.
It's over 10,000 ingredients. Yeah. So it's not even apples to apples, pardon the pun, when you compare a fiber supplement to what you're getting when you get an actual piece of fruit in your mouth.
I agree. Do you prefer frozen or fresh? You have a preference to veggies and fruits?
It depends. Like in the summertime, I really like cold smoothies because they're a way to keep cool. Yeah. So frozen is sometimes easier because they're already cold, and then your smoothie is automatically cold. Yeah. However, I get around that by sometimes when I get a whole big wad of fresh vegetables or fruits, I just wash them, clean them, and throw them in the freezer, and then they're already frozen.
It's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think that in general, because fruits and vegetables that are frozen are flash frozen, they're like cryogenically frozen the moment that they are fresh. So in general, you're getting something that is as nutritious as if you were getting something fresh. But I think that is a slippery slope sometimes, because you can therefore eat strawberries in the middle of winter if you're using frozen strawberries. And I think that we're just as seasonal as every other beast on the planet. Okay. I mean, our blood thickens and thins throughout the year depending on the season and the moon and the tide and all that kind of stuff. We're like ecosystems. So I think it's important to eat local and seasonal. And that's a little bit harder to guarantee that you're doing when you're eating mostly frozen things. That being said, if you really, 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 really love strawberries and that's the only way you're going to eat a smoothie, then get your frozen organic strawberries in the middle of winter at Trader Joe's. I love Trader Joe's. Yeah. Throw that in there and you'll be healthier because you'll be eating smoothies. Otherwise, you wouldn't eat it.
Right. Is there a fruit or veggie that you think most people are not thinking about that maybe they would want to take a look at? It's a tough question, I know. You already mentioned some interesting ones. Kiwi. I don't think most people think about kiwi. And when I go to a supermarket this week, I'm going to grab some kiwis and throw them in my smoothie because I've never thrown a kiwi in a smoothie. I have to be honest with you with that. So that's what got me thinking about that question.
Well, I'm not sure if I have an opinion on that, but I do know that in almost every green smoothie that I make, I always try to add at least a little bit of cucumber and celery and parsley because of several reasons. They're all very mild in flavor, and they're all very anti-inflammatory, and they're extremely low in calories. They're extremely high in water, and they're mild in flavor, so they don't change the taste very much. Okay. So it's kind of like I'm just packing it with more nutrition and giving it more volume without changing the taste all that much, and then I can change the taste with whatever else I want to add in.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize that broccoli blends very well in all different recipes of smoothies. And we used to consider it a superfood. There's so many good superfoods now. I'm not sure if it still is, but it's just so loaded with vitamins and minerals. So I definitely throw raw broccoli into smoothie from time to time. And people always think that's weird. I like broccoli. It's weirder than lima beans, which are, yummy.
Yeah, I like them both. I've actually used that as well. So you've been doing this an awful long time. I'm sure you've heard an awful lot of misinformation out there. Is there a nutrition myth that you think most people need to be aware of that is really a myth? I've heard my share, and there's a lot of them out there. I usually like to talk about a myth in every podcast. I usually start off my podcast by talking about the myth of the week. And I thought, maybe you've heard some myths that I have not.
That's a toughie. When just pertaining to smoothies?
Or anything, any kind of nutrition myth.
I may be about to make some enemies because
it's okay. I make a lot of them. Have you heard my podcast?
I guess I haven't heard enough of them yet. I think there are so many gray areas around the popularity of the keto diet. It was originally created for people with seizure disorders. Mm-hmm. And it's also very effective for people that are so morbidly obese.
Absolutely.
And I work part-time at a functional medicine practitioner's office. So it's also considered a version of it is considered a potential way to stave off cognitive dysfunction of all kinds. So we have a lot of folks coming into the office that are pretty sick.
Sure.
But I have yet to meet somebody with a seizure disorder or someone that was so morbidly obese that I would put them on a purely ketogenic diet. That being said, if the ketogenic diet that you're striving to maintain is whole food based and includes fresh whole vegetables, I'm okay with that. But in this country, you'll often see somebody taking a piece of filet and wrapping a piece of bacon around it and calling it good.
Correct. Yeah, that's their idea of keto. I think you can do keto healthy, but the way it's usually portrayed, it's it's a steak wrapped in butter, full of wrapped in bacon, and
that's the biggest myth that I kind of like to talk about a lot. But it's not really a smoothie myth. I mean, we already kind of touched on the fact that I'm not a really big advocate of living off a diet of smoothies.
Right, and I'm with you on that. I mean, they're convenient. I love the taste of them, but you got to eat food. Yeah. You definitely got to eat food.
The digestion process starts with the chewing.
Yes, it does.
So if you're swallowing all the time, that may not be a good thing. And then if you look at Ayurvedic medicine, they really don't like you to eat cold food. They don't always like you to eat raw food. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate Ayurvedic medicine, and it has its merits. Mm-hmm. So there's, the biggest reason why I advocate smoothies is because most people don't eat enough vegetables. And if you're looking for a way to eat more, this is an easy, fast, and tasty way to do it. But again, I'm not telling Americans here, I want you to live off a diet of smoothies. It's just not going to fly.
I agree. Yeah, it's a great supplement, for lack of a better term, to eating a better diet. It shouldn't replace eating food. But yeah, for those who are just like, I don't like the taste of broccoli or whatever, but if I mix broccoli with some kiwi or an orange, then I can choke it down. Hey, I'm off of that. So along the same lines, I've often said we live in an ocean of information, and yet, we got computers in our pockets, more powerful than the computers that took us to the moon, for goodness sake. But it does seem that Americans in general are more confused now than ever before. What do you think is behind all this nutrition, wellness confusion that, again, I tend to focus on Americans because I'm an American, but I know there's people in other countries listening to us as well, and they may be suffering from some of the same confusion. Why do you think people are so confused about what's the right way to stay healthy, whether it's nutrition, whether it's exercise, whatever? What do you think's behind all that? If there is, I don't really, that's why I think there's a conspiracy, but why are people, they just don't seem to realize that sometimes the simple answer is the correct answer. Move more, eat a little bit better, watch your stress, and you'll be okay for the most part. But it seems as though people don't get that message, and they want to jump on this bandwagon, that bandwagon, and try the supplement of the month or the superfood of the month. Like you said, broccoli used to be a superfood. I still think it is, but you don't hear much about broccoli anymore, probably because Dr. Oz hasn't mentioned it lately. Again, it just seems as though people are so confused. What do you think's behind a lot of that stuff, that confusion?
I really hope I'm not about to make a bunch of enemies. It's possible I am, but
I just did.
Thank you for laying the groundwork for me to say what I really want to say is,
okay.
In the United States of America, we have a lot of first world problems that just simply don't exist anywhere else and never have existed in human history. The second thing is, and this is a tricky thing to say, there's a lot of money riding on us not being well.
Yeah.
And I think actually there's only 10 major food manufacturers in the entire world now. All the little small companies are all owned by the big 10, even the healthy companies. When you walk into the grocery store, you think you're faced with all of this variety when in fact every single one of your pennies is only going to go into 10 pockets.
Wow.
And no one wants to put something in a grocery store that's going to go bad before it gets purchased. So there's an agenda to make sure that everything has ingredients in it that are going to make it shelf stable and taste good. And there's a lot of foods out there that are downright addictive. So I think one reason why people are kind of out of control in their lives and carrying excess weight, I think is just a sign that something's out of balance in the human body. I think one reason why people are kind of out of control, they can stop sort of beating themselves over the head with a bat, feeling like they have no willpower. They're somewhat addicted. Spending 30 days, even making just a baby step towards a healthier habit can really change everything. Like at the end of, if someone were to make the decision to eat more vegetables every day for 30 days, I can almost guarantee that at the end of 30 days, they would feel physically better. So then they have to make the decision, do I like feeling like this or do I not care? If they really do like feeling that way, then chances are they're going to keep going that direction.
One of my favorite books you talked about addiction is Sugar, Salt, Fat. How the nutrition world tries to get us addicted to the foods. And again, not being a conspiracy person, which I try not to be, but it's always about manipulating sugar and salt and fat. As they reduce the sugar, they increase the fat. As they decrease the fat, they increase the sugar and so on. So it's always about trying to find that magical little recipe of those three ingredients to get you hooked. I think it goes a long way with keeping people under their nutrition thumb, so to speak. And I always flash back to what Chris Rock, the comedian, said a long time ago in one of his stand-up routines. And when he said it, I thought, I don't like to be a conspiracy mind theory guy, but he had said that the money's in the medicine. It's not in the cure. And I say that sometimes in seminars I teach, and because it really is true. There's not a lot of money to be made in the cure. Type 2 diabetes. I mean, you watch TV, you see commercials for wheelchairs and things that'll get you up your steps if you can't stand up anymore. There's chairs that'll sit you up because you can't no longer get out of a chair anymore. And
commercials for pills. Go ask your doctor for this.
And there's pills, but I don't see a commercial for let's take a walk. Let's eat some vegetables. Let's lose some weight. Let's improve your hemoglobin A1C, your blood sugar. I don't see those.
Meditate.
Yeah. I don't see those commercials. And again, I actually know somebody in a wheelchair who reversed his type 2 diabetes. He's a quadriplegic. He literally got off his medications through, again, losing about 50 pounds from his wheelchair, and he's off his medication. So I don't see anybody talking about the quote-unquote cure for type 2 diabetes, but the money is in the medicine, not unfortunately in the cure. So I don't know. So he's got me thinking about one of my own little private tirades I like to go on once in a while. So I appreciate that.
Well, I bet you remember that University Medical School did a study a bunch of years ago. I could lay my fingers on it if I had to, that proved Oreo cookies were more addictive than cocaine.
I did not know that. I wouldn't doubt it. I've never had cocaine, but I have had my share of Oreo cookies.
Yes. And the more when you eat one, you really feel like you must have another. But when you drink a smoothie, when you're full, you're done.
Yeah. In the sugar salt fat book, they called it the Bliss Point.
Yes.
The Bliss Point is where you're in bliss. When you eat or drink something, you're like, oh my goodness, and you're hooked. That's what you're trying to find, the bliss point.
But then it goes back to the pleasure centers of your brain and how your body feels. If you can somehow, if someone can somehow commit themselves to eating more vegetables for an entire month, they will begin to see that they feel physically better. They may not feel as high as they feel when they eat an Oreo cookie, but everybody likes to feel well. Nobody will ever stick to any healthy lifestyle adaptation unless they like it. The tricky part is finding the thing they like.
True. Yeah. Last question.
Yes.
What would you say to the person who says they don't have a lot of time because they're busy with their work and their lifestyle, and they want some easy steps to improve their health? What are, say, 2 or 3 things they can do right now that at the end of, say, 30 days, they will be better?
This is going to sound woo-woo, but I'm going to just throw it out there. Okay. I'd say find a way to get out of your mind, get out of your head for at least 15 minutes every day. Okay. Just in the last 10 years alone, a bunch of really well-known neuroscientists have done some profound work in proving that regular meditation practice regularly can enable you to almost train your well-being, like you're learning a new skill, just by adding that in. And it doesn't get any easier than either sitting down and practicing mindfulness of some kind, or doing Tai Chi Chuan, which is considered a moving mindfulness, which I happen to think is more fun and easier for a lot of people than sitting there, you know. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when somebody sits down with the idea of getting out of their head, it's almost like they're giving the monkey permission to run amok up there, you know. Mm-hmm. So that would be the easiest and cheapest and fastest way to go about improving your health. It only takes like 5 to 10 minutes to make a huge big wad of smoothies that you could drink throughout the day. That doesn't take a lot of time, and it's cheaper than a lot of processed foods. It's certainly cheaper than a lot of the designer vegan foods these days, which have ingredients that don't exist in nature. Mm-hmm. Or get out and take a walk, for Pete's sake. That can't hurt. Being out in the sunlight, it improves the way your body's circadian rhythm flows. It just feels good to breathe some air. There's toxins that build up in the house, and just getting some fresh air can help detoxify your whole body. I mean, those are 3 really easy and totally cheap ways to improve your health.
Yeah, I agree. I think the walking is something that we don't think enough of. We think, oh, you've got to ride a bike till your heart explodes, and you got to do really intense exercise. And I got a phone call from a buddy of mine, I guess several months ago. He says, I just took my blood pressure. My blood pressure was like, I don't know, 200 over 190, something crazy. And, you know, he's like many of us. We're sitting down an awful lot. We're in front of our computer screens more time than we should be. And I said, go take a walk, take a 20-minute walk around the block. He calls me back a half an hour later. His blood pressure is back brand normal, 100 over 80 after a 20-minute walk. So again, it doesn't take a lot to see big differences in your health. Fantastic. 15
minutes a day isn't a lot of skin in the game.
Yeah, it's not. It's very easy to fit into your day, and even walking up and down your steps. If you have, if you can't go outside, walking down your steps a couple times is perfectly fine, and that'll lead to a lot of long-term health benefits. This has been fun. It's been fun. As time went by, I'm looking at my clock on my computer. I'm like, wow, we've been talking for just about an hour. We covered an awful lot of information. Jessica, what is the very best way for people to reach out to you if they want to learn more about smoothies and meditation, and also the work you do, the very valuable work you do with the veterans? How can they find you?
The best way would be to go to my website. It's full of information, and people tell me that it's friendly and easy to navigate. And do you want me to say it out loud?
Yeah, say it. I'm going to link to it, but you can say it. Absolutely.
So the name of my company is Sculpt Your Life. So it's spelled SCULPTURLIFE, sculptyourlife.com. And I think the last time people from far, far away tried to find me, I was told that I'm the first Jessica Lewis Sculpt Your Life that pops up on a Google search. So even if you just look up Jessica Lewis or Sculpt Your Life or some combination of the above, you'll probably find me.
Fantastic. And again, for those who are driving or working out, don't worry about it. I'm going to link to everything in the episode notes so you'll have no trouble finding Jessica. Fantastic. I appreciate your time, Jessica. This has been a lot of fun. My very first interview.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you. And I appreciate you. This really cool podcast that you put together. It's cool. Great.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So what do you think? I think that went pretty well for my first interview. If you have any suggestions on who you might want me to interview next, send them over to me. You can email me at either my websites, joe-cannon.com or supplementclarity.com. I do want to do more interviews like this. It's one of the reasons I actually wanted to do a podcast. So feel free to share any thoughts you have on that. And with that, basically, I'm going to bring this episode to a close with the exception of the quote of the day. And it goes like this. To me, if life boils down to one thing, it's movement. To live is to keep moving. Jerry Seinfeld. Couldn't said it better myself. Until next week, same bad time, same bad channel. I am Joe Cannon. Go out, be safe, and where you can, don't forget to make a difference.